Good morning. Welcome to the April 28th, 2014 meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission. If you would stand with us, please. Commissioner Buchanan will lead us in our prayer and our pledge. Veronica.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're thanking you for this day that you've given us, dear God. Thank you for this wonderful county, this wonderful state, and this wonderful country, dear God. We're asking you to come into our meeting today, Heavenly Father, anoint our minds, Father, that we can make good, positive decisions for our county. This is my prayer in Jesus' name, amen.
Mm-hmm.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Call the roll, Gail, please.
Rhonda Allen.
Here.
Jim Aberwater.
Here.
Veronica Buchanan.
Here.
Will Jordan.
Here.
Mike Cush.
Present.
Craig Lynch.
Here.
Chip Pinion. Pettis Reed.
Here.
Steve Sandlin. Mike Vaught. Jeff Phillips.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Gail. Item number 4, approval of the minutes. They're not ready, so that item has been withdrawn. Item number 5, deferred, Doug.
No, sir, nothing's deferred nor withdrawn.
Item number 6, submitted for preliminary plan approval. Item A, Harvest Woods subdivision, Section 1, Phase 3, and Section 2, Phase 1. The item number is 14-1002, 24 lots on 16.92 acres, zoned RM, located off Cutoff Road. Harvest Grove LLC is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is for the Harvest Woods subdivision, 2 different sections. As you see, Section 2, Phase 1, and then Section 1, Phase 3. The plan that you have before you represents the new process that we use based on the approval of our new subdivision regulations last year. Rather than looking at what really are the construction drawings, what you're looking at now really is more of a master plan of the development. A lot of this area is currently developed, but you can see these particular 2 sections that we're looking at right now. It looks like a total of about 24 lots on a little over 16 to 17 acres or so. We just had a couple of comments from a planning standpoint as far as some things need to be changed on the master plan that you have before you. Those items have been addressed. Something to just, and the developer is aware of this, but just one thing to just to put on the record, the step system that is out there right now is going to have some more field line installed in order to accommodate the extra lots. I think for the Section 2 Phase 1, it can handle the 8 lots for the Section 1 Phase 3, but that pretty much max it out. So they would have to add some additional field line area, drip line area for the new Section 2 Phase 1. But the applicant is aware of that, and that is something that they will do prior to this. And we do have confirmation from CUD and Middle Tennessee Electric, both that they can serve this development. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eric if he has any other comments.
And this plan in front of you kind of fits our new style, I guess you'd say, with our new regs, in which we get a master plan as a preliminary plan. And so there is some engineering on here, but engineering has done a quick engineering review, but the thorough engineering review will come at the construction drawing phase. So, but everything that we have so far meets our requirements, Mr. Chairman.
Does this finish that whole development, what we're looking at? There's still some more?
There's still a stub street at the if you're looking at the plan there in your top right, there's a stub street there that I'm aware of, and then back toward Cutoff Road there's another stub street down there.
Okay, are they going to anticipate that and add it to the step system at that time, or are they just going to accommodate this portion right now?
I'm not aware of their current plans, but like Doug said, I know the existing step system is nearing capacity, and so I don't know what their plans are from here, but I just know that they've got some stub streets. They have some availability.
Okay. Any other questions?
Meets all your, make a motion to approve.
Second. Yeah, second.
A motion to approve item number 14-1002. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7, submitted for final plat approval. Item A, Stewart Springs subdivision, Section 4, Phase 1. The item number is 14-2017, 11 lots on 18.43 acres, zoned RM, located off Burnt Knob Road. Salem Creek Partnership is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is an extension of the Stewart Springs subdivision. The preliminary plat for this development was approved by the Planning Commission at their August 26, 2014 meeting. The layout of this final plat is consistent with that preliminary approval. Besides that, there were a few comments that we had from a planning standpoint. Those comments have been addressed, but I'll turn it over to Eric for some engineering issues.
The plat before you meets all of our requirements, but just as a note, lot 163, which is their detention pond. If you recall, this is the site that we talked about in length when they first brought it in. There's a pond that they're building for this subdivision, and then just beyond that, there's a gravel drive, and then there's another pond owned by Mr. Willis, the adjoining property owner there. So there's kind of going to be two ponds beside each other with a road between them. The engineer and the developer and the contractor have met with the adjoining property owner, and I think they're trying to work out something where they kind of make it one big pond and turn that all into, so this lot 163 may come back before you in the near future to kind of be changed to incorporate that. Engineering wise, it would be great. It would be quality wise, it would help, and quantity wise, it would also. So we're anticipating that, but it's not official yet. So just so you know, we may see something in the near future that comes back to change this lot 163. But as is, it still meets our requirements and will work just fine.
I take it they're gonna fill lots 160, 161, and 162?
Yes, sir. They're already filled.
Eric, is the hashed color the 100-year floodplain?
Yes.
Okay. And does that gravel road that is next to lot 163, does it extend all the way through?
It
That
does.
separates 163 from the other potential pond?
It does. Yes.
Can you just pipe under that road for equalization, or are you trying to? Will you eliminate that road and then make one big pond?
I think that's the intent.
Is to
Currently,
eliminate-
there are a couple pipes under that road, but they
Okay.
are smaller than the engineer designed
Okay.
for this pond. So there's kind of some confusion on that.
So it would be okay. It wouldn't put anybody in distress if you abandon that gravel road.
No, not at all.
I mean, it's not leading to somebody's
No,
house
no.
or farm.
And
or
this is all floodplain.
Okay.
The property owner there, I don't know how many acres his tract is, but it's a large tract. So,
Okay.
and he would own all that.
Does this approval need to be contingent upon that anticipation of the
No.
pond across the street?
Everything works fine now, and this will allow them to go ahead and start building on some of these lots up here.
Yeah.
And then if they decide to do this on lot 163, I just wanted you guys to be aware of it, so when it comes back in, I won't think something's wrong or something didn't work. It's just kind of a change to their plan. And engineering wise, I think it'll be better.
Eric, when they fill a lot like these three that had to bring up out of the floodplain, who oversees that? I mean, that just on their dime? I mean, yeah, I'm worried about, settling in the future and foundation problems with the house. If they're filling 6 inches or a foot, but if they're filling 5 or 6 feet or something like that, I just wonder who's responsible for that.
Well, if it's over 3 feet of fill, then building code requires an engineered footer. And so now if it's 2.9 feet of fill, then it's not monitored. But anything over 3 feet is monitored. These are right there on the cuff, and so we would hope that whoever's doing the house would, if it's right on the edge, would go ahead and do that.
Good practice to make it tall footer down.
Whoever buys or
Good
builds,
subject.
what I was hearing Will say is there any note for potential buyers that this was at one time in the floodplain?
Well, of course, this plat's still showing it. We like for them to show. I mean, this plat's pretty clear as you see
Right.
the hatched in front of you. If someone pulls the plat, so we would hope that would be the first indicator. Outside of that, I don't know that there is one.
Okay.
And just so you know, this shows the current floodplain. Now, when I say current floodplain, when you go into the field now, they've already filled these lots, and so they are above this floodplain, but
Right.
this plat still shows it as is. So that should be an indicator that it is.
There's never a note that's on the deed? Because I know typically, you know, as a buyer, they're gonna have like a title search and they'll see the deed, but they're not gonna see the plat typically.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't see any deeds. I look at the plats.
curious.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the deeds, like warranty deeds, they'll reference the plat in that deed. They'll say lot such and such of the such and such subdivision located at plat book this, page that. I have seen that,
Right.
which would hopefully alert someone, hey, if I want to see what the lot looks like, and go pull the plat out and take a look at that. But I don't know if there's like a standalone. I've never seen a standalone note
Yeah.
in a deed, if that's what you're referring to. Yeah.
And also, what would go along with this plat is when someone went to build a house, they would get a letter of map amendment, which would be a survey document that would go along with this. That would show the floodplain elevation, and it would show the elevations of the foundation and the living floor and the air conditioner unit, those things. And that's what legally takes it out of the floodplain. That's how you have some kind of documentation that says, no, my house, even though it sits in the footprint of the floodplain, my house is built up. And so that would also accompany it. So that documentation would help with that process.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7B, Colonial Estate Subdivision, Section 12, Phase 1H. The item number is 14-2018, 10 lots on 3.93 acres, zoned RM, located along Dreamer Court. BC Developers LLC is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is another section in the Colonial Estates subdivision. This property is located to the east of Shelbyville Highway. The developer has been building out this particular section of the subdivision for the last several years. They're proposing an additional 10 lots with this section, and basically it's an extension of Dreamer Court. Dream is already there because the step area is further down the street, but this right-of-way here is also included as part of that. This really was a pretty straightforward plat. We didn't really have any comments on it, just one comment that was addressed, and it was really relating more toward the remaining area for the subdivision. Besides that, we really didn't have anything else, so the plat appears to be in good order, and I don't know, Eric, if you had anything else.
This plat meets all our requirements.
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff and county engineers.
Second it.
Motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? That motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7C, Benchmark Companies Mulch Yard. The item number is 14-2019, one lot on 6.97 acres, zoned EAC, located along Miller Road. Benchmark Companies is the applicant. Includes a waiver request to the fire hydrant requirements and our subdivision regulations. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Planning Commissioner should be familiar with this property. This was rezoned last year from RM to Employment and Activity Center, EAC. Again, Miller Road, there's a sledge right here, the I-24 and Epps Mill interchange back up to the northeast. The reason for this plat that you're seeing is because right-of-way dedication was required for this. This plat takes care of that. As you stated, the biggest issue here, and this is something that the applicant's dealing with also from the site plan side of things, is that there's not a fire hydrant within 1,000 feet of the property, and there's not the ability to put one there. The line's just a little too small. From talking with CUD, it was one of those that was really a marginal line. You know, could one go there? Possibly, but they were concerned about what that might do further down the line with if the hydrant was open. So at this point, they're just not comfortable recommending that a fire hydrant be put there. So if this plat is approved, it just needs to be approved contingent upon that waiver being granted. The applicant is going to have to go through the BZA to handle the other issues as far as the building and everything is concerned in regards to the fire hydrant. But besides that, again, this plat does appear to be in good order besides that issue. And if this is approved, they'll just have to put that note on the plat that the waiver was granted. And again, besides that's the most outstanding issue. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Don't forget.
Any questions for staff?
Doug, is there a building that's going to be on this?
There is going to be. We actually, the Planning Commission considered a site plan a month or two ago on this. It's going to be basically in this area somewhere with the parking and everything with it. So that's just kind of the part of that process.
Is it just like a temporary trailer, or is
No,
it
it's a building.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So is this a retail place?
No, it's a mulch yard. It's going to be a mulch yard.
Where people can come in and buy and load mulch.
Correct. I want to say he does more on the wholesale side, but people will be coming and doing more.
Okay.
Yeah, but there will be trucks coming and going to get mulch. Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve subject to any staff comments.
I'll second it.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion?
Well, and that's also based on the waiver from BZA, correct? You got to have a BZA waiver? Okay.
Other questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 8, submitted for site plan approval. Item 8A, Redemption Baptist Church. Item number is 14-3007. New construction of 4,250 square feet on 5.3 acres, zoned RM, located at 4110 Midland Road. Redemption Baptist Church is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this property is located along Midland Road. It's to the south and east of the Panther Ridge south really, and it kind of wraps around as the subdivision right through here at Panther Ridge. And it's the site in question. You can see this is Walnut Grove Road right here, Midland Road. The applicant's proposing to add a new building onto the property in this area. There is an existing church on the property. The existing capacity is over 150, and their proposed capacity is around 290. That still keeps it in what we would call a medium community assembly use. Since it started out that way and it didn't cross that threshold of 150 people, there's not a need for Board of Zoning Appeal approval here, since it was already over 150. But essentially, again, what they're doing is adding a larger facility to the property. There are a couple of issues with this particular plan just to be made aware of. The first thing is that they currently use gravel parking. With the expansion of the property, they're going to have to ask for a waiver to keep that graveled as opposed to paving it. Also, the nearest fire hydrant is in this area in the Panther Ridge subdivision. It is within 1,000 feet. Unfortunately, it's a low flow hydrant and doesn't really meet the requirements for fire protection, so they are going to have to ask for a waiver to that or sprinkle the building. If they do that, then they would meet that requirement. So that's something that we'll explore as they go forward with that particular application. The other had to do with this building that you're seeing right here. They shifted this just a little closer to the property or to the existing building in this area from what you're seeing right here. That had to do with, I believe it was Middle Tennessee Electric, the electric lines in this area having to shift, or actually up in here, I think, having to shift some of the lines around a little bit. But that's not something that affected the application or the site plan in any material way. But that was done after we'd already gotten this. So just to be made aware of that. Again, that's not really an issue as far as we're concerned. But the gravel parking area will also have an impact on what landscaping they can do right now, so that's something we will work with them with. But again, the site plan in and of itself is not in bad order. I think it's okay to move forward, just subject to those comments, and we'll just continue to monitor this as they move forward with their project. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Doug, how many seats or how many people then will this new building, existing building house?
Well, what they're proposing would be about 290, has seatings for 290 people.
Okay.
Is that above the 150 now, or is that in?
It's I think the existing capacity is about 160, somewhere around in there.
So it will be the 290 total?
It'll be 290 total, right. The way we handle the classifying it is the capacity of the largest area of gathering.
It's on top of it.
Right, yeah, no, it's not on top of it. This would, basically what they're doing in this building would be shifted over here, and they would just kind of repurpose this area.
How do the, and I'm not picking on them.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get by with not having that parking lot asphalted and just, as opposed to just leaving it gravel?
Well, that's what they're asking for. Now, if they go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and the board says, no, we want you to go ahead and pave it right now, of course, that's something they'll just have to do, and then they'll submit a revised site plan. Nothing to probably have to come back to you. It's just a matter of changing the word gravel to asphalt. So that's just what they're asking for. A lot of the times when it comes to churches, when they're building, a lot of it's a financial issue. They want to go ahead and get the building up and then maybe put the paving off for a couple of years. This wouldn't be the first time the BZA has considered a request like this, but everyone, of course, is judged on its own merits.
Yeah.
So the board could say, no, we're not going to grant that. We want to go ahead and pave it, but that's just a request they'll have to make.
So there's no real current code that says it has to be asphalt?
Well, no, that is the requirement.
Okay, they're just seeking a waiver, they're seeking a waiver to
Right,
the
a variance
current.
to that, correct.
Okay.
Now, you're not, at this level, you're not the ones granting the waiver.
Right.
All we're saying is this is what they want to do. Essentially, what you would do if you approve this is approve it subject to them getting that variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals. If the Board of Zoning Appeals decides they don't want to grant that,
Yeah.
then they just have to pave it. That is the
I gotcha.
requirement.
Okay.
Mike, if they do not get that waiver, and if they pay that, it will put them into their stormwater quality requirements. It'll put them over 15,000 square feet. So,
Okay.
so that's something we'll have to address.
They're using the gravel as pervious.
In
yeah.
our regs, it is
Yeah.
pervious.
So it's to their advantage to keep it gravelled for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how would that impact them if they have to pave it?
Well,
Have-
the requirement we have is 15,000 square feet of pervious surface. New pervious surface would put them into the category of having to do stormwater quality.
They have
Basically,
to
they
do
a
a pond or some kind of
Yeah.
a structural,
Because this building's only 4,250 square feet, it falls under that threshold, but that parking lot would, I would say, would put them over 15,000.
There's been no complaints of dust or anything like that from neighbors in the past?
Not that I've heard.
Talk to me about the fire protection issue. You said that there is a line, but it's a low flow line.
Right, yes, ma'am. Up in this subdivision, there is a hydrant. You can't see it on here, but there is a hydrant in this area, probably a little further up in this area. But it's one of the, I think it's a red top hydrant, which means that the flow can't get over what's required for what CUD requires for the pressure and everything. So I don't even know if it's one that they would even use, if there was something an issue with the subdivision itself. Now, if this building is sprinkled, and that's really, that'll be something the applicant will have to kind of determine, along with, any kind of religious use, church building like that has to be approved by the state fire marshal's office, I believe. I'm sure there's certain criteria for that. If that is sprinkled, then he wouldn't have to worry about the fire hydrant requirement, because we put that provision in the zoning ordinance when we updated it, especially for situations like this. So if not, he is just going to have to ask for the variance to the fire hydrant requirements in the zoning ordinance.
And to be clear, if they had to sprinkle, it would just be the new building? They wouldn't have to go back and retrofit the existing?
I believe that's correct. Now, that's probably a question more suited to our codes director. That's something he would be more familiar with than myself. So I don't want to speak for him.
Does anybody, any of us know that question, answer that question? Do you have to go back and retrofit? No? Okay. Don't know, okay.
But the fire hydrant waiver is through the BZA also, is it not?
Correct. Yeah, they would be doing both the gravel and the fire hydrant at the same time.
Drought's over.
Here it comes.
I do know over 5,000 square feet, they require you to have a sprinkler system.
They do, okay.
Yeah, anything over 5, so they're under it
Right.
with 4,000.
So they may not be required, but if they did so on their own, they wouldn't have to ask for the fire hydrant variant. And we'll relay that to them so they're aware.
Is the applicant here, or representative?
Well, I know there's someone here from SEC. Mr. Mike Hughes is here that can answer any questions possibly.
Yes, Mike Hughes filling in for Jamie. What I was told by Jamie is that they could add a hydrant, but the line itself is a low flow line, and it wouldn't have the capacity to support a hydrant. So that's what they're they're asking for.
Yeah, and chances are, because of that, CUD wouldn't let them put one in.
But my
Yeah.
question is, have you had these conversations with your client where they recognize there may be some barriers to this project?
Yes, ma'am. They're aware that they have to go to the BZA for both of these.
All right, Doug, and let me ask one more question. If the BZA grants the hydrant requirement, or not having to have a hydrant requirement,
Right.
or maybe, I need to say that a different way. Would they have to sprinkle, or can BZA determine whether that's necessary or not? Or can they do a waiver on the sprinkler, or would that come back to us?
That
or would
would-
it just
right.
be an automatic that you have to do it if you don't do the hydrant?
If they don't do the hydrant, and, okay, I mean, there's, I guess, a couple different ways it could go. If it goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals and they grant them the variance to the fire hydrant requirement, then I don't think there's anything further that they have to do. If they go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and the board says, no, we think you need to do something out here, we're not going to grant this variance, you need to go ahead and sprinkle the building, I think they have that ability to do that, and that's what would have to be done. That wouldn't necessarily come back to you for any reason.
Right.
That would just be, okay, now you have to sprinkle the building. So it's really either they grant it and they grant everything, or they don't. So I think that's really what we're looking at here on this.
You're saying they could grant it, or they could grant it with, or condition.
They could just deny it and they would just, if they denied it, they would just have to sprinkle the building if they denied it. So if they approved it, then I don't think they have to do anything further. But if they were to deny it, then I think they have to sprinkle the building at that point. Right, correct.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to all staff comments and them getting their 2 variances.
Second.
Motion to approve. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 9, staff reports and other business. Item A, proposed zoning amendments for entertainment and amusement services outdoor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to kind of flip-flop these just because really most of the discussion I'm going to have is going to be on the first item. I just want to do just a quick update on the plan unit development discussion we had. Following our discussion at the April 14th meeting, we reviewed a lot of the materials that we used in preparation of our PUD regs back in 2009. We do agree with the Planning Commission that there really isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to this, but after looking at the language that we have in our ordinance, we think what's there is going to be adequate to address the phasing of amenities in a PUD. Of course, now a lot of what we looked at when they're talking about amenities, they're talking about like your tot lots or your swimming pools and those kind of things. Maybe not so much sidewalks and street lighting and those type of issues. But what we're going to do is, as we talked about before, is require a little more thorough phasing plan on some of those issues for plan developments moving forward. I think that's something that would clarify things for staff, clarify things for you as the Planning Commission, for the developer, and even those people who are buying in plan developments. And then we'll just kind of watch the things if sidewalks are required or if streetlights are going to be put in, those kind of things. We'll just kind of watch that as we go forward with that. But I think what we have currently in our ordinance is going to be enough to address that. So just want to kind of give you an update on that. Didn't know if anybody had any other questions or comments before we move on to the other item. All right. Of course, if you do, if you think of something, always feel free to give us a call. The other item that we did want to talk about today under staff reports and other business is what we're terming our zoning amendments for entertainment and amusement services outdoor. Again, this was something that was on our work schedule for this year. Our zoning ordinance currently has an activity classification for what we call the entertainment and amusement services. Some examples include bowling alleys, movie theaters, those kind of things. Those type of uses are typically seen in commercial areas, but other such uses that are currently classified under this category, such as paintball fields, what are called play fields, we're going to rename that the ball fields, but we really feel that those are going to be better suited just because of the nature of the use. They're better suited to larger tracts of land, probably what you find out in more rural areas of the county. The issue that we're running into is the entertainment and amusement services are only allowed really in commercial zones. and industrial zones. They're not really allowed in any of the residential zones or even the agricultural zone, which is typically where you'd find larger tracts like that. And quite frankly, staff just doesn't feel comfortable recommending to somebody that they take a 50-acre tract of land that they want to use for some sort of a large paintball field facility or ball fields or something like that and rezone it for a commercial use, just because you don't know what might be coming after that. If you zone a piece of property 50 acres or so for commercial use, the ball fields don't work out, well, you have a 50-acre tract of land that's now zoned for commercial, and there could be a variety of uses that are there. We do feel that that would be inconsistent with our comprehensive plan and probably a lot of the development patterns in those areas. So what we're proposing to do is divide the entertainment and amusement services classification into two separate categories, one being indoor and one being outdoor. And we've identified some general standards that you see here on the on your screen here. They kind of go left to right. First thing we would do is amend the definition section that we have, the classification section 206, section G. After, for a larger group, C group assembly, we would add this activity type has 2 levels, indoor and outdoor. That's similar to what we do with general retail trade. We have general retail trade above 5,000 square feet and under 5,000 square feet. So this wouldn't be unprecedented in New Orleans the way we have it. We'd add a couple new examples, paint fields and ball fields. And then we propose these general standards here, as you can see, minimum lot size of 5 acres, and I'll get into why that's important here in just a little bit. We would allow accessory uses such as snack bars, offices, maintenance facilities, those kind of things, which are designed and primarily used by the patrons. Site plan approval would be required, subject to Section 1404, which is our general site plan standards. Uses in this section shall abide by the parking requirements found in Section 1102. We would not require them to be paved necessarily, but there would have to be an agreement that would have to be come to between staff and the applicant about how they were going to do the parking. And if one couldn't be agreed upon, then the Board of Zoning Appeals would have the ability to make that determination. Also, we would require them to abide by the landscaping, screening, and buffering requirements, as well as the performance standards as far as lighting and noise and those kind of things found in the ordinance. And then we kind of put a little catch-all down here. All regulations enforced through other agencies, be it federal, state, or local, have to be met. Now, let me, there was one other thing here I wanted to show you all here. I apologize, I forgot to open that up. Let's see here. Okay, where is that? Oh, here it is. Okay. This is what we would propose, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk to the Planning Commission about, is where we would allow these. Now, this is what you see right here, the entertainment and amusement services. This is what it currently says in the ordinance. Now, we would change that, this particular category to indoor. You see it's not permitted in any of the residential zones. This is the mobile home park, office, professional, institutional. We do allow it by special exception in a commercial neighborhood, but then we allow it by right in the other 2 commercial zones, the industrial zones, special exception in the village neighborhood commercial area and our village neighborhood center and then a rural center, and then EAC would be permitted by right. What we're proposing at this point is just special exception in the AR zone, which is why the 5-acre minimum is on the list that you had, because there is a 5-acre minimum there. Now, one of the questions we had as staff and something we wanted to open up to the Planning Commission is, are you comfortable looking at a possible special exception, not just in the AR, but maybe also in the RL and the RM zone? Because a lot of the times these larger tracts are in residential areas and they're already zoned for either RL or RM. Either we could require them to zone to agricultural, residential, the AR zone, and then make them go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, or we could just say if you've got them in that area, we would look at it as a special exception in those 2 zones as well. I'm not comfortable making it a use by right necessarily in either one, but that was a discussion that I wanted some other information or some feedback on from the Planning Commission. Along with that, we would add certain things here. You know, amend, this is the land use index. We would add ball fields to that. Right now, they're just called play fields. We would change that, as you see here, to ball fields. We would amend all these particular ones that are existing in the ordinance to tell it's either indoor or outdoor, or possibly both. We would delete a few in here. There's a few that we would probably need to get rid of in here. We'd probably keep indoor gun ranges in there for now. Actually, I thought I had taken that out. But the reason being is we're actually looking at some regulations for gun ranges on top of what we're seeing here. We're not quite ready to bring those forward to you yet. We're hoping in the next month or so to have those to you. But there's a lot more involved in that, a lot more issues to consider in that. So that's kind of where we are at this point. Also, we'd add a category to our off-street parking. Ball fields would be 10 for every acre of land, plus 1 for every 4 spectator seats, or 1 for each linear feet of bleacher, whichever is greater. That's pretty much what Murfreesboro's regulation is. Looking at Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and some of the surrounding areas, the regulations are pretty similar. We'll look at Williamson County, Smyrna, Murfreesboro. They're all fairly. There's some nuances between them. But this is we thought was a pretty good definition. So again, are you comfortable just allowing those in the AR zone, or do you want to see them maybe expanded a little bit? And are there any other standards that you can think about that you may want for us to consider? Right now, this is really more of a discussion item. If you're comfortable with everything, we can go ahead and move this forward to next month for our night meeting. We only have one other zoning case on there, so this wouldn't be overloading it by any means. But just wanted to kind of bring this up for the Planning Commission's discussion this morning.
How does it affect, like churches as an example, that want to build recreational ball fields, multi-purpose ball fields and that kind of thing? Any effect on that?
When we put this together, I think we were thinking more on the lines of these are standalone uses, really. A lot of churches have play fields and things like that. A lot of that would go back to what their site plan approval would allow. Now, that's probably not a bad idea to maybe clarify that as part of this, is to maybe put some amendments in to the residential zones and things that would allow these as accessory uses to religious uses, community facility type things. That's something that we could add into this and be pretty easily. But we were considering this more as standalone uses when we were putting it together.
And it could get kind of muddy. Just if a church grew like the church that we just approved was growing and acquired some additional land and wanted to do some recreational things on that, what would be their requirements? And
right.
I just have that question in mind, and I know some other folks probably will too as we go forward.
No, that's a very good point. We can certainly add something like that in.
The facility that we approved on, I think it was on Florence Road near the cemetery.
Yes.
What zoning did we give it? Was that institutional?
Yes, ma'am. It was institutional.
So, did you not want to do something like this? Or again, are you thinking the same kind of thing where it'd be part of the master site plan? It wouldn't be, because when I saw that we didn't allow it institutional, I'm thinking, well, kind of why not? Or why wouldn't it even be a special exception? Because I'm thinking of, I guess, that type of facility being
right.
nearby.
Yeah, and like I said, I think when we were putting this together, we were thinking this more a standalone as opposed to accessory to something else. But I think we can expand this to include those type of uses. Because I think there's an opportunity for these kind of uses in those other zones as accessory uses, where it's really used by the people that use the facility. So I think we could
Want to do a special exception for a neighboring property to something like this, or I guess it would just have a different zone.
Well, yeah.
And let's say there's a large tract beside the one that we approved that had institutional zoning.
Mm-hmm.
So it would just keep its same zone. It would be a special exception. We wouldn't have necessarily grabbed and done additional institutional zoning.
Probably not. Right. Yeah, that wouldn't necessarily be required to do that, right? But a lot of that depends on how this chart ends up looking when we're done. Again, if you're comfortable with special exception and some more zones, then we don't really have any real issue with it. This is just kind of where we were going, because a lot of this kind of stems from the issues that we get. We get phone calls occasionally, people wanting to do gun ranges or paintball fields and things like that. And the only thing we can tell them right now is, well, they're entertainment and amusement services. You have to be zoned commercial at least, or industrial. And when we look at that, we're thinking, is that really what we want? And it's not. So what we decided, just to start, again, just throw it out for discussion, we'll say, okay, it has to be zoned agricultural residential, get a special exception in that zone. But even among staff, we said, well, is there some benefit to possibly allowing it in residential areas? by special exception, as opposed to just limiting it in one zone. And I mean, in that regard, you could go SE across the board if you wanted to. 'Cause that way you know that something like this could be in any zone.
It's more permissible to do indoor in multiple categories, more so than you've done outdoor, and I'm just.
Right. And again, that's what we wanted to have some discussion on, right?
But the agricultural zone is almost non-existent. I mean, there's only a handful of properties in that. I mean, I don't see a problem with, since it's not a use by right, it's only by special exemption or exception to go in with RL and RM, because there are a lot of tracts of property that are in the floodplain or behind a subdivision or somewhere that can't be developed and are not zoned AR. And looks like since it's only by special exception, I would want to expand that a little bit.
Okay.
You know, and since none of it's just a use by right, it's going to be seen by somebody. And 'cause there are very, very few pieces of property so far zoned agriculture in the county.
So
Not-
if,
This doesn't have any bearing on the corn mazes, agribusiness.
No, no. We actually consider that that's already covered under the agritourism. They're already by right in agricultural zones. And
Refresh us RL and RM.
RL stands for residential low density. It's got the minimum 1 acre, and the RM is residential medium density, which has got the minimum of 15,000 square feet. It's basically the new name for the R15.
so if we would agree to adding special exception to RL and RM, does that mean anything still becomes, any plan would come before this board for approval?
Right, but well,
That's for BZA.
unless, well, yeah, the use itself would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Now, you'll recall when we talked about the standards, site plan approval would still be consistent with section 1404, which, if it met certain criteria, basically the size of the buildings, if they want to build some buildings on site, that still may have to come before you. If not, it would just be a staff approval, but they still would be required to do a site plan.
And they've got to have a minimum of 5 acres.
Correct, and a minimum of 5, and that would be regardless of what zone they were in.
Yeah.
I guess what concerns me is the potential for noise pollution, and here's why I say that. Based on this, if I wanted to build a motocross track, I mean, there's certainly a dust and noise and nuisance issue there. If I wanted to build a skeet range and be blasting all day long, that's an issue for the surrounding folks. Or even a concert. What if you did an outdoor amphitheater? I just think those things, somebody with authority needs to hear that and weigh all those options, whether that's the right piece of land for that particular use.
Right.
None of these say use by right, they all say special exception. So
And if you see, I highlighted a sentence there on your screen. You can see it talks about the performance standards. We have performance standards in our ordinance now that have standards for noise and dust and lighting and those kind of things. So we share your concerns there, Mr. Cush, on that. So that's why we put that in there. But of course, that comes an issue of code enforcement at that point.
Right.
But that's one of the reasons too, we're looking a little closer at the shooting range, like you said, the skeet shooting range standards. And there are some state codes about that as far as the noise is concerned, about what cannot be considered nuisance under that. So that's something that we're kind of looking into. But that's why we didn't. It was actually what we planned to do was bring it all to you at one time. But when we realized that set part of it might take a little bit longer, we at least wanted to get this discussion on this started. So we plan to bring that back here in the next couple of months, I hope. But we wanted to at least get some discussion going on the base, if you will, and everything will kind of expand. These would be kind of the general standards, and then what I anticipate is under this, if this is approved, you would see general standards, then you would see specific standards for shooting ranges, specific standards for if we added some for motocross or something like that. That's kind of what I envision happening here over time.
Doug, if Mike applied for a special exception for his motocross track and, he operated 3 years and then lost interest, would the special exception still be in effect if he sold it 5 or 6 years down the road?
Generally speaking, if they're not conditioned otherwise, special exceptions run with the land. The board does have the ability to condition it to expire upon sale or transfer or something like that, which they have done in the past.
You could do that.
Right. It's not automatic. If they don't say that it does, then it would just continue with the land. So let's say, like you said, Mike decides 3 years after he gets it approved, he doesn't want to do it anymore. He wants to sell it to you, to continue. You could continue operating it under the same parameters he was operating under.
Unless, when it was approved, it expired with the transfer.
Correct. If they conditioned it to expire upon transfer.
That would be permissible to put that in.
Yes, it would be.
Now, when we used to do the conditional use permits, if it was problematic for any reason, neighbors could file a complaint and
Yes.
it could be revisited. Is that what happens under special exceptions or no?
Yes, ma'am. No, it's really the same thing. Really, conditional uses, special exceptions are conditional uses just under a different name. The reason we went with the special exception is because that's the term the state law uses. So, but it's.
That there's some.
There is
not
a,
just,
yes, ma'am.
You
Right.
get it. You're
And that's
gone.
it, right, yeah. No.
See you later, but if it's not working, we
Right.
can go back and look at it, that it's not working.
Right, and generally how that process works, if a complaint is made, of course, we investigate it. If the complaint has merit, of course, the first thing we do is get with the app, whoever's running the facility or whatever the issue is, we get with the owner of the property and say, okay, we've gotten this complaint. They say this is what's going on. We've looked into it. It appears that the complaint is correct. You need to take steps to fix this because of these reasons. Hopefully, in a perfect world, that's enough to fix the problem. If they just say, well, I got my approval, I'm not going to fix it, I don't care, I'm not going to deal with it anymore, I'm done, well, then we can take them back to the Board of Zoning Appeals for them to revoke that permit. Or if it's something that they want to try to address but maybe can't unless they get an amendment to their application, then they can also go that route. But the board would have another say in it at that point.
And what are the fees to apply for a special exception?
$300.
Doug, here's one of your what ifs. Say if one of the neighborhoods, Harvest Grove or Harvest Woods Homeowners Association, decide that they want to put in a tennis court, and they have a little patch of common area in the neighborhood, say it's 2 acres. Would they, because they don't have the 5-acre minimum, would they be able to put the tennis court in their neighborhood?
Well, I think that kind of falls under a little bit different situation because, we do have subdivisions. You'll recall, I think it was Lewis Downs. They did a pool lot not too terribly long ago. We do allow in our zoning for amenities and things like that in actual neighborhoods, which in my mind could include pools, tennis courts, those kind of things. So I don't think that would necessarily fall under this. So to answer your question, I think they'd be fine, even if they didn't have 5 acres.
Now, somewhere when you led us into this, you were talking about the difference between public and private uses. Is there a difference? I mean, does it matter? I was thinking I had read that somewhere.
Oh, you're probably talking about right here.
Does it? Because when he says that, I'm thinking private uses. I'm thinking private for that neighborhood owned by the HOA. Is there a difference between public and private uses?
Well, when we put this in here, I'm thinking ball fields publicly owned. I'm thinking like if the county decided to put in a park and have public fields where people could go play, that's classified as cultural and recreation services. It's classified a little differently. Ball fields that are privately owned, we would just. So there's a difference as far as that goes. If it was actually owned by like a governmental entity, we would classify it a little differently. But again, going back to the discussion about if it was in an actual neighborhood, as part of a subdivision amenity package, I think that falls under a little different area of the regulations than this.
These ball fields that are privately owned, say a guy just builds a great big ball field out there for kids, neighborhood kids to play in. Are we talking about as a business venture charging people, or?
It doesn't really yeah, it's that's really kind of what we're
commercial on TV,
right.
what is guys?
Well, and quite frank, what kind of started some of this was there is a landowner out in the county that did just that. He has a larger tract of land, a couple pieces of property, and he built a ball field for his kids to play on and everything. Well, it's turned into a lot more than that, and we've been trying to work with him on that. Of course, again, we don't want to see the whole property zone commercial. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So he's wanting to use it for more than just his kids at this point. So that's kind of one of the things that really got us looking at this a little closer than what we had been. So that's, yeah, I mean, if it's just somebody that builds a small little ball field in their backyard for their kids to play on or something like that, we probably don't look at that quite the same. That's really more personal use as far as, just accessory to the residential use of the property. Again, what we're looking at here is really more your standalone uses where people, it's a destination at that point. People are coming here. You have to provide parking and seating and those kind of things. It's a little more than just somebody wanting to put a small baseball diamond in their backyard because they have 20 acres so their kids can play on it, kind of a thing.
It'll be a good gray area, isn't it?
What's his turning into, Doug? Is it a practice field, or is it a scrimmage field, or is it turning into a place where travel teams play, maybe?
Basically what you just said.
Travel teams. And
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what he's
more in depth.
right. I think it started out innocently enough, and I'm not saying he's done anything wrong. I think it started out, this is what he wanted to do, and next thing you know, it kind of got some people's attention, and hey, you got a nice field you're putting together here, and hey, how about we have a scrimmage or two there? Oh, okay. And the next thing you know, hey, we want to have a tournament there, and it just
And
kind
you build a
of
concession stand. And you put a
exactly,
campground.
yeah. So
You need restrooms.
lights and
everything else.
everything. I don't think he's quite got to that point yet, but
Wasn't my finest.
yeah. But that's why when we saw that happening, and we're like, well, we really need to start getting a handle on that, because we don't want to see that just popping up anywhere, obviously. So
Okay, and to take that just to the next extreme is, would a Bonnaroo fall under this?
I don't think so. Well, no, I don't think it would, because
Down here?
if you look under, like this text right here, where it says for larger groups, see group assembly, really what we're looking, when it comes to entertainment and amusement services, when you look at the descriptions in Chapter 2, when it talks about that, it's really talking about 150 or less people, or less than 150. I think 150 and over falls under group assembly. So if we got a new Bonnaroo or something like that wanted to come in, there's group assembly regulation. There's also temporary event regulations that currently exist that we could consider those under. So I don't think that really, that wasn't what we were looking at for this.
And nobody could squeeze it into this?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No,
So
ma'am.
we always have to look for the outliers.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah, no, I don't think in this case. There's other vehicles to deal with that. So.
Any effect on, like a civic club, that's just an example, a civic club, it might be some other organization that sponsors fireworks stands during certain times of the year, or a civic club sponsoring a turkey shoot or something like that. How would any of this affect?
Well, actually, it's funny you bring up the turkey shoot. That's under the shooting range regulations. There's actually some definitions in there that discuss those, and we'll bring that to you. That is something we're considering. I think kind of the way we're leaning at this point is that we would just exempt those kind of special events, turkey shoots, those kind of things, because we know those happen frequently. So we wouldn't want to lump those in the same category as shooting ranges and those kind of things. But what was the other? You said, what was the first thing you said? Fireworks stands. Yeah, fireworks stands are already regulated under a different section of the zoning ordinance. They have to be located in commercial areas, and that's typically where we see them.
So that would take care of fireworks.
This wouldn't, right. Yeah, this wouldn't even, if somebody wanted to come in and say, well, I want to apply for a firework under these new conditions, we'd say, no, you fall under this section of the ordinance already. So yeah, this wouldn't affect that.
They are permitted already, aren't they? Don't they have to apply for permit?
Yes, sir, they do. They have to provide they have to ask for a special exception. The BZA has to approve those all.
So you got a little more work to do, and
Yes,
bring
sir.
it back to us.
And that's fine. Yeah, I don't think we're ready to bring this forward yet to the Planning Commission's night meeting. I think you brought up a lot of good points that we want to kind of get into a little bit and make some changes to this. But that was why we brought it to you today. We just wanted to kind of get your take on it and to help us out. This was our first draft of it, if you will. So obviously it can be better. So that's why we brought it to you, was to get us some ideas to how to do that. So we appreciate the input.
So item number 9B, you're not going to make any changes, so there's no need for us to do anything.
Correct.
And item A, had some discussion, and you're going to make some additional additions.
Yes, sir.
And bring it back to us again.
Absolutely.
Ready for item 10?
Just a couple of other, just real brief items. Mr. Pettis Reed brought some flyers for the Power of 10 Summit that's this Wednesday. It's at T-Pax Polk Theater. For those who have been there before, usually that was held at the War Memorial Auditorium. Just be aware that that is a different location. They've got some good speakers this year. Looking forward to that. I know that the four of you that asked me to sign you up, I did. I don't recall I signed myself up, don't ever recall getting an email about it. I don't know if any of y'all ever did, so I'm hoping we are signed up, but if you're not, you can sign up at the door, so there's not a big issue there. And since you're public sector committee members, there's no charge for that. So just wanted to kind of bring that to y'all's attention. Also, the way we did the agenda this time around, you'll notice when we sent the email, we sent you a link to get to the agenda. Did that work okay for everybody? It seemed, I forwarded a link to my house and tried it there, and it seemed to work okay. Did that work for everybody? Everybody was good with that? Okay, we're going to continue doing that. That's using the county's new SharePoint software that they have, which I know our commissioners are familiar with, especially our county commissioners are more familiar with. But we already had a planning and engineering page set up. We didn't even really know about it. But now we've got the ability to post all of our full planning commission agendas and BZA agendas on that site. So we're excited about that, and that's how we'll go forward with that if everybody's okay.
So that also saves a fair amount of printing and postage.
That's correct.
Every month.
Yes, sir.
Well done.
Thank you.
One question.
I'm sorry.
Doug, fire hydrant waivers. We do a lot of fire hydrant waivers, and rightly so, because there's not pressure. They don't need a fire hydrant there. But I know there's some lines going to be improved, some areas that the fire hydrant protection is going to be available. Is there anything, like some of these two we had today, when and if you do have adequate pressure, you are required to put in a fire hydrant? Do we have anything?
There's nothing currently in your ordinance that says that. If you'd like us, we can draft some amendments to that effect. Now, the biggest issue I see there would just be policing that.
Yeah.
We'd have to work very closely with CUD or whoever the water provider is in those, in the outlying areas of the county. If they do make some sort of a line improvement, somehow we'd have to know about that. Then we could call if we had a bond or whatever it is on the fire hydrant, we could say, okay, now that it's there, you need to go ahead and do it. Or maybe it's something we just have, maybe it's something that the water provider carries the bond, if in the event it's ever upsized, then they can go ahead and do
Here's
that.
what I'm wondering. Craig had mentioned that earlier. It made me, it reminded me of years and years ago when Laverne first got their sewer system.
2 years.
We had been on a septic, and it was like, when it came down your street, you had a fee. And whether you chose to tap onto it or not, you had a fee because now it was there, and you had the availability to it. I'm wondering if there's not some similar assessment. That way it's spread out amongst everybody who's now enjoying that protection instead of the last guy who put a bond up who came in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's a CUD conversation.
That's something that'd be that's a good question, but I think that'd be something we'd have to explore.
I noticed when the new lines went in down Almaville Road that they put in all new hydrants, so it might be something that CUD is already doing. I think it's probably.
There's something's going to be improved, and I don't want to bring it up, Dave, because I had two people that had issues here, but in the future, do we need to have a public hearing on that, or how do you put the teeth in there where that, when and if you get pressure, say at this church?
Right, well, if they're going to make changes to the ordinance, then yes, we'd have to have a public
But
hearing.
have to go forward.
Right.
Couldn't go back.
Right. So we would have to do that. Now, once the policy's in place, once the regulations are in place, if we do make changes like that, then you wouldn't have to necessarily see everyone come back to you. That would be something that'd be more of an administrative function at that point.
No, we'd never see it.
No.
Well, or is that a CUD piece? Because if they chose to put one in, because now the line can support it, I don't know. Do they have the ability then to charge their users? And it takes us out of the equation altogether. I don't know.
I think CUD could flag it and let Eric know, and then let Eric pursue that. Dave, or maybe even David.
But
Could
let's.
BZA not give a variance until the time the pressure is there? Could that variance not be worded that way?
Well, it could, but I think again that gets back to
Policing the matter.
Exactly, and again, if we're working more closely with CUD on those items, and that maybe not an issue, but just putting a blanket statement out there saying, okay, we'll grant you this variance until there's a fire hydrant is able to be installed out there because they upsized the line. If we never know that they upsized the lines, I doubt whoever it is going to call us and tell us, hey, guess what? We get to spend more money now, kind of a thing, because there's a water line there. So that's my biggest concern on that. But again, I think that's a conversation worth having.
We think it is too.
Mhm.
So put that on your plate. I know
sir.
your plate's kind of full, but put that on your plate and bring it back to us when you have some ideas.
Yes, sir. We can do that.
When's our next 6 o'clock meeting?
It'd be May the.
May the 12th at 6 p.m. at the courthouse.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Just kind of a, also, kind of a, a preview of some things to come. We talked about some of the ordinance amendments, things that we're working with gun ranges and thing, but something that we're hoping to try to work out for our next day meeting, which would be the 27th. Keep in mind that that would be a Tuesday because the Monday is Memorial Day, so we'll send a reminder out to that effect. I've been in contact with Sam Edwards from the Greater Nashville Regional Council. There have been a few laws that have gone through the state legislature this year that are going to have a pretty significant impact on how we do business going forward regarding when a site plan or a plat is approved, the regulations when they're approved at that time are basically they're vested for so many years. It's a pretty substantial bill, big change from how we currently do things. Probably have to see some ordinance amendments and some subdivision regulation amendments to that effect as well. But there's a couple other bills too that kind of went through the legislature that I'm going to ask him to come here and kind of give an overview of those. That would be considered part of your training for the year. So I would encourage you to try to be here. Again, I'll be on the 27th because that'll be a Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day. So just to be aware of that coming up. So that's pretty much all I had. And I'll hear if you had anything you want to say.
Anything else? We'll see everyone on the 12th. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Anything like this, we need to be over.